Hello and welcome back to a new video. This time we are going to make another top list. And again for point and click adventure games, but this time not from the 90s but more contemporary or modern ones, if you want to call them that. Because if you're not feeling old yet, a few of those games have been released more than 10 years ago. Now, as a disclaimer, as for all of these videos, this list is purely subjective. I'm not claiming that these are objectively the best 15 point and click adventure games from that era, but they are very dear to my heart and I'm going to explain why I like them and what they mean to me for each and every one of them. So without further ado, let's start with place number 15.
But it's a brand new day. And today the sun is shining for one man. And one man only. Larry Laffer.
As you might have gathered from my other videos, I'm a big fan of the Leisure Suit Larry series. So it might come as little surprise that also the new games are here on this list, or at least the first of the two new ones, because I haven't played through the second one yet. Wet Dreams Don't Dry succeed in the most important category for those games, in the humor. The jokes are just as bad and cringeworthy as in the originals, and I think that's a fantastic thing because you could have expected that a modern Larry game would tone things down a bit, but no, not this one. This can be a pro or a con depending on your point of view, because yes, you do have your stereotypes, you do have your sexism, and some of the jokes maybe have not aged as well, and you don't have the added aspect of nostalgia from the old games when you play them, so it will never really be the same as the originals, but they really did their best, I think, to recreate the experience, and I think they did as well as they could, bringing the old series to modern day. Gameplay wise, it's a good experience. You have some really decent puzzles, a lot of locations and even more inventory items. You can die, but that is really of little consequence as you get put right back where you died, so there's very little frustration here. And I do enjoy the colorful cartoon aesthetics with lots of details and animations that really brings the world of Larry back to life. So if you do want to play a modern Leisure Suit Larry game, you can't really go wrong with this one, I think. My number 14 is Broken Sword and the Serpent's Curse, the fifth entry in the Broken Sword adventure series. The newest entry in the Broken Sword series that came out in 2013 and was funded by Kickstarter. At the time, quite a few people complained about the 3D characters that had replaced the hand-animated ones from the older games, but at least I think we didn't get a full 3D game, and the backgrounds in this game are just beautiful. So many detailed artworks that you can just really have as a painting and hang it in a gallery. They are just that great. And the game is not bad either. It features a similar approach as the older Broken Sword games, so you have this story about some historical events and then some fictional events intertwined, and you have to find out about this mystery and secret organizations, and there are many plot twists and turns. And I think it succeeds quite well in the story, even though it's not as interesting and exciting as for the first game, in my opinion. But you do get a fair share of beautiful European locations to go through and many funny and quirky characters on the way. The puzzles are more on the easy side, I would say, and a few of them don't make perfect sense, or at least what I didn't like is that a few puzzles seem to have an easier solution, but the character just doesn't want to do it and doesn't even comment on it, so that feels a bit frustrating to me when I think, okay, why don't you just do it this way? That would be much easier and would accomplish the same thing, but you do have to go with the solution that the game designer thought of. Nevertheless, if you like slower paced games with a bit of a mystery behind them, I think Broken Sword: The Serpent's Curse will be the perfect game for you.
And what kind of work is that?
Special Agent, Violent Crimes, Central Bureau.
Well, shit.
Whispers of a Machine is the next game on the list. A sci-fi game with a very unique setting that takes place after an apocalypse, but it's much more optimistic than your usual game in that kind of genre. In the world of the game, AI and CPUs in general are outruled, so technology is much more simple and you get this vibe of living in some kind of outsider commune. I really enjoyed the world building and the characters are also written very well, and it's just interesting to discover the world and talk to the various people. The story raises a few intriguing questions as well about humanity and what it means to be human and what it means to work together with technology. The game also looks very nice and has some beautiful music. My main complaint would be the puzzle design. Generally, the game is rather easy and straightforward and it works quite well. But then you have these special abilities that, for example, allow you to read someone's pulse or be extra strong for a few seconds. And this sounds nice on paper, but in actuality it's rather gimmicky. You don't use them very often and it's oftentimes obstruse when you have to use them and how to use them. I feel they are not explained well enough and it comes down to using those abilities on every screen in every way with trial and error, and that just makes things a bit complicated. And also there's this ability to choose different dialogue choices and then form your character to be, for example, more empathetic or more logical, and that will unlock different abilities, which also sounds nice in theory. But then there are a lot of items or objects in the world that you can't interact with if you've chosen one way or the other, so you have a lot of unintentional red herrings that make things unnecessarily complicated. Yeah, it was the game on this list where I had to use the walkthrough the most, because those puzzles, especially where you use those special abilities, never came naturally to me, and I just had to look them up because I never expected to use the abilities in the way they were designed. Still, it's a great game and it's a lot of fun and very interesting, so I would recommend it to everyone to play. If you liked the video so far, please consider subscribing to the channel and giving the video a like. Thank you! Kentucky Route Zero is a weird one. It's more like an experience than an actual game, and if you would ask me to retell the story of it, I would be hard pressed to even make any sense of it. Still, it's a wonderful and enchanting experience if you engage in it. I think the images you see in the background speak for themselves for this wonderful, very atmospheric vector style art that's just so completely unique that you will never confuse the game for anything else. This game just instills this beautiful feeling of loneliness and melancholy that sticks with you a long time after you've completed the game. Yes, you could complain on the lack of gameplay elements or that it's maybe a bit too pretentious, but I think that comes down to personal preference. It's definitely not a game for everyone, but if you're looking for something very unique and if you don't mind reading a lot of text and getting into some stranger and more poetic territory, then this might be the game just for you. The Lion Song is an anthology with 4 chapters that plays right before the First World War in Vienna in Austria. You play as a different character in each chapter, but there's a common theme of creativity and what it means to establish yourself as an artist or intellectual. Those are not so much stories of suspense or action, but more of personal growth and getting to know those characters and their struggles to find their way. The stories are very creatively told, visually as well as well written. Combine that with a great soundtrack and these unique, almost sepia-colored pixel art, and you get a great atmosphere of how it must have been to live during those times. The puzzles are generally rather simple as the story takes the forefront, but it's interactive enough that you really have something to do, and I definitely enjoyed my time with the Lion Song. So if you're open for some more low-key storytelling and something very unique and new, then I think this game will be great to try out. and the first chapter is available for free anyway. Now, before we get to the top 10, I wanted to talk about some honorable mentions that didn't make it onto the list. First off, we have the game Norco that I heard a lot of good things about, but I didn't have the time to really play through it and only played maybe about the first hour or so I'm not feeling comfortable enough to add it to the list, but maybe I'll make a video on it at some point later in the future. From what I've played, it's a beautiful adventure game in a deep and interesting futuristic setting that also has some clever mechanics, and I can't wait to get back into it. The other two games I wanted to talk about mostly because of the visuals are Trüberbrook and Tormentum Dark Sorrow. Tormentum is more like a puzzle game with really dark and creepy art style, but kind of interesting and unique, so I wanted to show it to you here. And Trüberbrook is your more classical point-and-click adventure. I didn't care much for the writing and I didn't like the puzzles so much, so it didn't make it on this list, but it looks really great with this stop-motion miniature art style. Another game that will come up soon is Harold Halebut that will have a similar art style, so I'm really looking forward to that. Maybe that has some more interesting writing, but it's also from a different developer, so who knows. Last but not least, I just quickly wanted to mention that I've recently released my own point-and-click adventure, Zarathustra Cybergeddon. So if you're into cyberpunk and Lovecraft themes and want to check out the game, it's completely for free to download on either Steam, itch.io, Epic or the Google Play Store. You'll find the links in the video description below. So I finally recently played through the whole Blackwell series and I had a great time doing so. Place number 10 so rightfully goes to Blackwell Epiphany, the last part of the series, which in my opinion is also the best. It was really interesting to me as a game designer to see the series evolve and especially which decisions had been made on the way and how the priorities have been set and the quality improved. The last part of the series sports some nice production values, really beautiful graphics, and especially the atmosphere is much more dense in my opinion than from the other games. I mean, New York during snowfall, that's just nice to watch. And the music is also really great and atmospheric. I did like the story as well. There was a satisfying conclusion, I would say. It was a bit over the top, a bit jumped the shark in my opinion, but well, that's fine I guess. At least most of the questions had been answered and the story overall made quite some sense, which is a big feat for a series that has been so long running. The puzzles were mostly really good, I think. Only exceptions are you can switch between the two characters and Joey the Ghost has some abilities that were in my opinion not good enough explained, because sometimes he was able to do stuff that I did completely not expect him to be able to do, and that were the parts where I had to look in the walkthrough. And generally the world building and the rules of the world sometimes felt a bit iffy and made up on the spot, but yeah, not in a way that it broke my immersion or anything. So Blackwell Epiphany and the whole Blackwell series is definitely a recommendation from me. On a Winter's Night for Travelers is an anthology similar to the Lion Song game, where 4 little stories where you play different characters are tied together in a bigger narrative or theme. But beware, those stories are really dark and creepy and very mysterious as well, so there are many elements that may surprise you, and I just love the game for the dense atmosphere that's dripping with all these supernatural and unholy Lovecraftian vibes. It's just the perfect game to play in the dark on a winter's night. The puzzles start off extremely easy, more like an interactive story, but they get a bit more complex and involved in the later chapters, but don't expect any real brain teasers here. The game is definitely more focused on its story and atmosphere and characters. The amazing pixel art just adds to this otherworldly, strange mood of the game, and you have a lot of animations and little details, and the lighting and set dressing just ties everything together, as well as the music and soundscape. So if you want to immerse yourself in a series of creepy short stories, this game is just perfect for that.
I live alone in this old 2-bedroom flat. I rarely go outside. Some would say it's a lonely life, and I guess that's true, but I don't like people's company. Not lately, anyway.
When I first played The Cat Lady, it was a very memorable and unusual experience to me that stuck with me ever since. The game released in 2012 when indie games were still something new, and it was still very unusual to have games tackling serious issues like depression or even suicide. So this game is really not for the faint of heart. But the way it deals with this topic and makes you empathize with the main character is deeply engaging and thought-provoking. From a gameplay perspective, you could argue that we are not even talking about a point-and-click adventure here, because, well, you're not pointing and clicking, but controlling the character with the keyboard. But I think in the more general sense, this still holds up. The puzzles are rather simplistic, because you only have a few points of interactions or locations at a time, but they do a good job at serving the narrative and pacing of the game. Another interesting aspect of the game is definitely the art style. It mixes photographs with pixel art and painting, which sounds like it shouldn't work, but it does in its own weird kind of way. And it creates this surreal environment matching the inner state of the protagonist. So if you're looking for a very unique and new experience and you're not afraid to engage with more disturbing topics, then The Cat Lady is a definite recommendation from me. Now the last door is a bit similar to On a Winter's Night. Both games feature a similar creepy and otherworldly atmosphere, they both play in past time periods, and they both feature a pixel art style. But whereas On a Winter's Night is more episodic, the last door features a grander and more involved storyline. Also, the locations are a bit bigger and the puzzles are a bit more complex and interesting in my opinion. The game gives the narrative a bit more room to breathe to really immerse yourself in the world of the 19th century. And there's this big mystery to uncover which keeps you engaged until the end of the game. The pixel art of this game is very low res, but it's impressive how much detail they've managed to put into those scenes. And I have to talk about the music. The soundtrack is amazing. I'm really having a hard time editing here because I wanted to put in all the tracks, but well, then the video would go on for more than an hour. The game comes in 2 seasons and I would feel hard pressed to recommend one over the other, so I just say start with the first one, and if you liked what you played there, then go and continue with the second. The Last Door, creepy, moody, melancholic, just great. So maybe there's a bit of nostalgia already involved in Sam & Max, thinking back how I played through the first season once and then again a second time watching my friend playing through the season, having a few beers and having a lot to laugh. In my opinion, Sam & Max the Telltale games are the funniest games that exist, only rivaled maybe by the South Park games. Over the 3 season and 15 episodes, obviously there were a few hits and misses, but overall I think that the games are really great. If you're looking for a cohesive narrative, then maybe Sam & Max wasn't the right place to look for in the first place, but those small crazy storylines are just so entertaining that I don't mind if they make much sense or if they have any deeper meaning or character progression. This is just awesome entertainment in its purest form. The graphics are nothing to write home about, and I would very much have preferred the pixel art style from the original game, but I think they aged gracefully enough so that you can still enjoy it without having to close your eyes, and the jazzy soundtrack features some really cool tunes. Overall, I had a great time revisiting the games and enjoyed the puzzles, the story and the humor just as I did back then.
So tell me again why you're here.
I was assigned to the case by the Home Office in Albuquerque.
There is no home office in Albuquerque.
I think Thimbleweed Park is a very special game. It was one of the first big IPs connected to big names from the industry, and it showed that there was still quite a lot of interest in old school point-and-click adventures left. Collecting over $600,000 on Kickstarter, the game had more than enough budget to go all out. And it did. This is a really big and complex game. Which actually is the reason why I didn't put it higher on the list, because for my personal taste it's just a bit too complex. Oftentimes you have many different characters at once that you can switch between, everyone having their own inventory, you have so many items and locations and stuff like that, so this game has quite a high difficulty for this genre. And I felt that sometimes the puzzles got into the way of the storytelling, because it oftentimes took me so long to really progress the story in a meaningful way. That said, the game is still amazingly crafted, the puzzles all make sense, so this is very subjective. If you do like harder puzzles, then this is the perfect game for you. And it's also maybe the prettiest game on the list. At least for pixel art, this just looks amazingly beautiful. The colors, the lights, the atmosphere, the animation, there is not much you could improve here. And the writing, typical Ron Gilbert, is absolutely A-class as well. So watching this video you've probably already played through the game, but if not, definitely give it a go.
I've been stuck in this uniform for 10 years! 10 years! I can't take it anymore! Then I found that book! What do you do? Fuck! Dude, what the hell?
My number 4 spot is Unavowed, and this was really difficult to decide between number 4 and number 3. It was really a coin toss. I will tell you why number 3 won out in the end when we come to that place. What makes Unavowed stand out from the other games on this list is its replay value. You're not only defining your own character at the start of the game, which has consequences for the whole story, but you also have your team of sidekicks and you can select which one you want to take with you on each mission, and this means that there are many different ways to solve all the puzzles and get many different interactions between those characters. On top of that, you also have a few decisions that you can make during the storyline that will lead to different endings and having different puzzles on the way. You would think that with so many different permutations, the story would lose focus or the puzzles would get dumbed down, but on the contrary, the game plays great whatever choices you make. Having this intricate game also look and sound amazing is just the cherry on top. So the only reason why I didn't put it higher were just personal reasons that the story didn't connect as much to me personally and didn't really surprise me in any way. It's not bad by any means, it's just not so much my thing. With that said, I think Unavowed is the first must play on this list for any point and click adventure fan. Now let's wrap up this video with the top 3. Now this may come as a surprise, as I think that the Darkside Detective is not as highly regarded as a few of the other games on this list. But hear me out. The first game really had its issues, but the second game is much improved. The story is much more coherent, the writing and the jokes have improved, and especially the relationship between the two main characters has really warmed my heart. The game in general has grown quite a bit, each episode is a lot longer, has more locations and more intricate puzzles, and is just a joy to play through. Maybe another factor why I've rated this game so highly is because I played it during a difficult time and it really helped me to get my mind off things. It's just the perfect comfort game for me. And maybe also as a game designer I can see the beauty in the simplicity of those games. There are some elegant solutions and clever tricks here to give you more of an experience, even though obviously the production values are not as high as on many other games on this list. The game just brims with creativity, having its very own charm, and I love it for that. And it doesn't hurt that the various cases are very different from each other, so you never know what you get yourself into next. I would still recommend playing through the first game before starting the second one. It's a rather short game anyway, and you get to learn the characters there. But the real fun starts with the second game, The Fumble in the Dark. To absolutely nobody's surprise, Return to Monkey Island also made it on this list. The biggest surprise maybe is that it didn't hit the top spot, even though I think it is the best modern point-and-click adventure game, but it's just not my favorite point-and-click adventure game, and we'll see about that later. If you know the Monkey Island games, this game will be very familiar to you. And if not, what are you doing? This entry in the series is set out to finally reveal the actual secret of Monkey Island that we never found in the first game with the same title. Some folks were disappointed with the ending of the game or the art style. I really don't see the former, but maybe the latter. I'm a big sucker for pixel art and I was a bit disappointed when I first saw the game, but after playing it for just a few minutes it clicked with me and it's just great to look at as well. The game itself to me is the embodiment of modern point-and-click adventure games. It's so streamlined and polished, it's so easy to use, there's this great hint system, the controls are great, the pacing is great, the difficulty is well balanced, you always have enough to do but you also always know what you have to do, so you never really get lost here. It's just a joy to play and the gameplay never gets into the way of the story, the quirky characters or the humor. I don't really know what else to say here other than if you haven't played this yet, then go on, what are you waiting for?
Dearest Mother, I hope this letter will reach you. I have spent these past years in torment, trying to piece together what remains of fractured memories. What I am about to recount to you will seem beyond comprehension, but I beg for your patience.
I feel like I'm very lucky that I've played the Excavation of Barrow. I've bought a Humble Bundle with What Jedi games in there and there was a coupon 50% off for the Excavation, and I was hesitant to spend that because I just got quite a few point-and-click adventures with a bundle, but I decided to go for it because the trailer really looked good and I've seen positive reviews on the game. I've spoken about atmosphere quite a few times on this list, but this game really takes the crown. It's unsettling and unnerving. You always have the feeling that there's something beneath the surface, but it's never quite clear and can oftentimes be attributed to the imagination of the main character. Subtlety in horror games is a rare thing. This game plays it masterfully. It might not have the most detailed or highly animated pixel art we've seen so far, but it has the most character in my opinion. There's just something a little off with all the characters and the portrayal of the world, which keeps you on your toes and asking yourself what is real and what is not. On top of that, it's really fun to play. There was just one puzzle I remember that felt a bit illogical to me or hard to get, but all the other ones were pretty clever and well designed. Add to that some great voice acting and soundtrack, and you've got yourself a very memorable and unique experience. I'm already looking forward to go back to the game in a few years when I don't remember every detail anymore, and I can't wait to play it during the spooky season and immerse myself in the strange world of the small town of Bewley in England. Phew, that was quite a list I would say. I hope you got some inspiration and try out a few of the games for yourself, and I hope you had fun watching this video. Check out the other videos on my channel or subscribe to see more retro gaming goodness in the future. And with that, see ya!